Hey guys, welcome back inside another YouTube video, and this time, this is episode 2 of How to Code in Python. If you guys watched my last episode, then you probably know what I taught you guys in the last episode. So last episode, I basically taught all of you how, what the print statement is, the variable function in Python, variable and integer and string. So a quick wrap up of those, integer and string. You have to define them to make sure your code doesn't go wonky. An integer is a number, and a string is basically some text or words. The print statement is used to print anything or display any words onto the screen. And finally, we have the variable, which can be used to store uh, data, and it can be called upon to print later on in the function. So as you guys know, again, I'm using Mars Academy's website. I actually logged up and took a few classes, took 20 classes with them, and they're really good. You get 20 or 10 classes, how many ever you want, and in just the course of 3 months, you can learn a lot about Python. You can choose your level, or you can just sign up to have some fun and just learn some Python. So anyway, let's get into the video right now. So as you guys can see, I actually have two pieces of code right here. So these two, they look the same, but I will talk you through the differences this time. So if I just click here, which is again provided by Mars Academy, so it says run the program and enter two numbers. So basically what have you given us in the first, so the second one is actually my code which I wrote, and well, it's super short, but anyway, it's still code. The first one is the one that they gave us, so you guys can take some time and figure out what's incorrect in this code if you do know, or you can just try to spot the differences in the code in between these two codes. They're separated by this line, so line 7 to 11 and lines 1 through 5. Okay, so that was pretty short time. Don't worry if you can find any differences. So let's go through it line by line, and I'll explain what it's saying and what the use of each function is. So the first one, a, on both of them are the same. A equals input, then in parentheses and quotation marks, enter number 1. So a is a variable, and what's being stored inside the variable is the input to the question enter number 1. So input is basically, actually I explained in the last video too. So input is where you can input your own, as a user you can input your own thoughts, or basically a number in this case, into the computer. So yeah, it works, enter number 1. So and then if you guys can see a little text box here, I can write my number. So any number you want. So a, and then the answer to that will be stored in the variable a. So if you put 6800, a is equal to 6800. If you put 1, a will be equal to 1. So again, the same thing is with b here. B is also the same thing. Instead, it's just enter number 2. And then here's actually the difference in the code, the main line, which are the calculations. So this is the main line, and that's what is wrong in the code that Mars Academy have given us. So line 3 and line 9. So look at this. So in their code it says C equals A plus B. In my code it says C equals integer A plus integer B. So you guys are probably wondering, if you haven't watched my videos, what does integer mean and what big change does it make, and also the parentheses, which I'll explain later. So right now, I'm just gonna comment all of these lines. So right now, what's gonna happen if I run the first line of code is that it's just gonna put those two numbers together. For example, if I put 7 and 8, the number will be 78. So 7 and 8, and it's incorrect too. Oh, sorry about that. That was just my line marker. There we go. So that should technically work, technically not. So as you guys can see, and the sum is equal to 78. And that's of course incorrect. I hope you guys know that 7 plus 8 is not equal to 78, and it's actually equal to 15. So why it's putting 7 and 8 is because of line 3. C equals A plus B. The first mistake is that we have not defined that a and b are actually integers. So right now thinking a and b are strings because this is a string and so the variables are a and b and the input, so since this is a string it takes our input as a string too, and you cannot add strings together. It will only, and you can only get 78 because it's adding a. So a is 7 and then b is 8. So technically it's saying 7 plus 8 is equal to 78 because you're adding those two numbers. Because you haven't defined a and b as integers, it thinks that they are strings. It thinks that they are pieces of text which you just put them together. But that is incorrect because we want to know math functions. So what's correct with my code right here is c equals integer a plus integer b. So it knows that both a and b are integers and they're both numbers, and the plus sign right here is actually add them, actually to do the math function addition, not just put those two numbers together. So the integer changes it all, and we of course need the parentheses just to make sure that it all stays in its own lines. So integer, so you, of course you have to have the parentheses, and then integer a plus integer b, so it doesn't get integer and a mixed up. So yeah, that's basically it. So if I comment all of the, oops, didn't click properly. So if I don't comment these, you're thinking, why can't you just leave them and just play the second piece of code? Now it's actually gonna run the first piece of code first. So just quickly take all of these on that, and now when you play the code, it's actually gonna do the math function, and it's not just gonna squash the two numbers together. Enter number 1, 7, 8, 15, and as I told you guys, the integer is all that makes the difference. So it knows that a and b are integers and not strings. And when you put addition, when you put the plus sign, it knows that you're adding them together. So that's it. So again, this is the wrong code, and then this is the right code. And the only difference is the integers, guys. I don't think there's any like capital N's now. Yeah, it's all the same except the integers in the parentheses. So that's that. And the last part of this video. So again, this is just gonna review what I just told you guys. So a and b are again variables, so same two lines. And then again, c integer a plus integer b, and then you're printing c. The exact same thing. 7, 8, 15. You can also do 1002. No, I can't read that number. So that is actually the answer. If I go up on my calculator right here, 1 2 3 4 5 6, I think it was 1 2 3 4, I don't know actually. Anyway, so it is the right answer. You guys can put that into your calculator and figure it out. It is the right answer, and yeah. So right now, I again tell you, integer, you have to define them. You have to make sure that you're doing it properly. You have to make sure you're defining your strings properly. Otherwise, the code will get them mixed up and it will not do what you want it to do. So anytime you're doing a math function and does it incorrectly, go check your integers and strings just to make sure that it's all fine. And yeah. So again, it's this exact same thing, except this time we're just doing another function. So enter a number, enter another number, b equals input, a equals input. Again, storing the number in a and b, and then the exact same thing, but instead of adding them, we do add them, a plus b divided by 2. So we just add that divided by 2 at the end there. So nothing really special there. We're just adding the divided by 2 there. Enter number 7, 8, average is 7.5. This is to calculate the average, by the way. So if you guys don't know how to calculate the average, well, how you do? Number a plus number b divided by 2. Or since I have two numbers divided by 2, or it can be number a plus number a, number a plus number b plus number 3 plus number, oh my god, sorry. So if you have three numbers, it'll be divided by 3. If you have 25 numbers, it'll be divided by 25. If you have 1236, it'll be divided by 1236. And the very last part of this video is just yet the same thing. I just want to really get this point across because it's a very common mistake. Even when I was coding, I made this mistake many times. So again, it's not actually integer this time. So as you guys can see, I have replaced integer with float. So you guys can take some time to just think about why I did that and what could possibly change. Just add some water there. Yeah, okay, so basically what a float is, it's a decimal number because it's floating in between two numbers. An integer is a solid number, so examples of integer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Examples of floats 6, 6, 7 is also an integer. Example of float 1.1 or 1.2, 2.3, 2.5. So all of those are floats. So you guys can see why that is good. If you can see here, just quickly skim read it or you can pause the video. We're converting something from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So of course the temperature can be 0.5, 0.3, 0.2. Normally they just show it as 11, but it is normally not exactly 11 degrees Celsius. It is normally 11.1 or 11.2. So they round the number. So this is just being extra accurate with the float. So all we're doing is replacing the integer by the float, and this is just these two are just the formulas to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. So don't have to worry too much about that. This is multiplication. That asterisk there is a times, and the slash is a divided by sign. So the only new thing here is float, replacing integer because you have a point, because you have a decimal number, and then we also have string. So why do we have to have string? I've explained it a lot, but I've never really used it. So why is it not integer? Well, that's because right now C is an integer because you're doing math functions with it. I've already defined it as float. So basically, so right now it's actually a float, not an integer. Sorry, it's a float. So now I have to change it back into a string and make sure that it fits in this little area right there. So what is the temperature in Fahrenheit? It could be 45.5. The degrees in Celsius is 7.5. I can do so right now. I think the temperature here in London is 70. I'm just putting 5. No, it's a lot cooler than that. 65. I say 50 maybe. 55. Let's go 55.7 degrees Celsius. 13.1. 6. How many ever 6 and then 7. So and the Academy actually gives us a perfect ending for this video. Yes, that is it for today. What you guys learned is the just reviewing the integer and the float, integer and the string, the use of parentheses. Make sure that your parentheses are grouped properly, just like how you do them in math. Making order of operations, and what is a float and an integer and strings, and why it's so important to define them. So this is basically just an extra 15-minute extension of video number 1 for integer and strings, just because it's so vast and you guys really have to study on it, and it'll be used again in every single piece of code. Any text, any numbers, it'll always be there. So again, with the perfect exit from Moz Academy, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that like button, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.